Covenant. My name is Patrick Griffey, the Associate Director of Discipleship, and this is a Wednesday Rewind. This past Sunday, Melody Street preached on Jesus dining at the tax collector's house. This is the tax collector we know as Matthew, who ended up being one of Jesus' disciples. And it's in this scene, this story, that we're going to read again from this passage. And this is in Matthew 9. But before we get there, I think it's really interesting that the 3 weeks that are kind of in the middle of right now, so last week, this week, and next week, are all really focused on Pharisees. And it's Jesus having these meals with these specific people, with the Pharisees involved. And that's going to be really highlighted by this conversation that kind of Jesus has with the Pharisees in this particular passage. And I want to read this now. And it's Matthew 9, and it's going to be verses 9 through 13. As Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. "Follow me," he told him, and Matthew got up and followed him. While Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" On hearing this, Jesus said, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners." Now, it's appropriate enough that I am currently sick. I've been sick since last Thursday. Started as a sore throat, had a bunch of other stuff that's taken place. Finally went to the doctor on Friday. And so I really love this passage of Jesus's, because what he's saying is that if you're well, you don't need to go to a doctor, right? It's only the sick people that need to go to a doctor. But there's something obviously more at play here, as there always is with Jesus. Because very often, as he's talking to the Pharisees about this, he knows they're sick as well. In order to get help, in order to be healed from your sickness, you got to recognize that you have sickness in the first place. So for me, it's that sore throat. It's like, oh, well, now we're getting more into the asthma range, like the cough. I got to go see a doctor. Candace will be sick for 3 weeks, and she's not going to do anything about it. She'll take her ibuprofen. She'll just say she needs sleep, and then she'll get better. So we disagree on some of that. But the big thing that Jesus is focusing on here is that we are all sick. We may not know it, but we are all sick. As we've been reading through the Bible recap, we see that these figures in the Old Testament, the Davids, the Moseses, the Abrahams, they have sickness in their life. Now, they're these great patriarchs that did incredible things that God made covenants with and that he used to lead his people, the Israelites. But they had sickness as well that they needed healing from. And for me, I've talked about this before, when I first started in ministry, I felt like, I don't need the Old Testament. Like, why do I need the Old Testament? We've got the New Testament. We have Jesus. Like, Jesus has gotten rid of all that. Like, that's all antiquated. That's old. I don't need any of that. But it is through understanding the Old Testament, through reading about these patriarchs, these heroes and heroines, and also seeing their failures, that we see the great depravity of God's people throughout. Without the Old Testament, we cannot truly accept and appreciate the New Testament. If you don't understand the Old Covenant, if you don't understand the sacrificial system that was established by God and the Israelites, you can't fully appreciate the sacrifice that was required by Jesus in the New Testament. The blood of the Lamb was necessary as a sacrifice to bring us back into communion with the Father. But if you don't recognize that you are a sinner in need of saving, how do you accept that? How can you pay a debt if you refuse to acknowledge that you have a debt? How can you make good on a loan if you say, "No, I don't owe anything"? That's what Jesus is saying here. And I think the really interesting thing in all of these scenarios with the Pharisees, especially when they're saying, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" The funny thing to me there is not necessarily the tax collector part, but the sinners. Like, is there ever a time where Jesus is not eating with sinners? We're all sinners. We are all sinners in need of God's grace. And what the Pharisees don't recognize is that they're sinners as well. They are holier than thou, and they're righteous, or self-righteous. And I think that is what is really highlighted by this passage, and an important message for us in the church. We're not too good for this either. We are sick. We are in need of saving. We cannot do it by our own power. There's nothing that you can do to bring yourself back into good graces with the Father. It is through Jesus Christ's sacrifice and His sacrifice alone that we are able to even come into union, come into a relationship with the Father, to restore what we have broken through our sin. Our sin has created this debt. And Jesus recognized that, and He paid the debt for us. So yes, it is the sick that need a doctor, but we all have to recognize that we are sick, that we need the great physician, Jesus Christ, to save us from those sins. Join us this upcoming Sunday as we continue the series, A Seat at the Table.